Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we love to take a closer look at topics that pique our curiosity. And today, we're going beyond footwork and blade work.
Okay.
We're going to explore the mental game,
The mental game.
using some fascinating research from France. And, of course, none of this would be possible without Fencing Family,
Fencing Family, our sponsor.
an amazing Etsy shop based right here in LA, creating awesome apparel for fencers.
I love their stuff. So comfy.
You can find them at fencingfamily.etsy.com. Okay, so let's set the stage a bit. Our source material today is an article about this project called Train Your Brain, funded by the French National Research Agency.
Oh, the French.
And, it's important to remember
Yeah.
that France is a fencing powerhouse, 123 Olympic medals. So they're definitely doing something right.
Oh, sure.
And it looks like part of that something is taking mental training seriously.
Even Olympic-level fencers experience significant mental fatigue
Wow.
during competitions. We're
Yeah.
talking about athletes at the peak of their physical condition,
Right.
but their mental state can actually, make or break a match.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this study. Who conducted it and what did they find?
Well, this study called Train Your Brain was funded by the French National Research Agency, or ANR. It was a pretty big collaboration between the French Fencing Federation and several universities,
Wow.
with a unique blend of psychology and physiology expertise.
Cool.
What's really interesting is that it was led by Julie Doron, a former international fencer who's also a sports psychologist.
Oh, wow.
So she really understands the demands of the sport from both sides.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so break it down for me. What makes fencing so mentally demanding?
Well, competition days can last up to 11 hours.
Oh, wow.
Imagine bouts interspersed with these long, unpredictable waiting periods.
Right.
That kind of rhythm can really mess with a fencer's mental state, especially leading up to those crucial final matches.
I can see how that would be tough.
Yeah.
So how did they actually study this in the Train Your Brain research?
They actually simulated Olympic-style competitions. Fencers went through a series of matches mirroring the Olympic format, and the researchers tracked their physical and mental fatigue using a variety of methods: tests, questionnaires, interviews,
Wow.
and even eye-tracking technology.
Wow. They went all out. So
Yeah.
what did they learn from all that?
The key finding was that while physical fatigue was minimal, mental fatigue actually increased significantly as the competition progressed.
Interesting.
Their bodies were holding up,
Okay.
but their minds were starting to wear down.
Okay, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
What about solutions? Did the study offer any ways to combat this mental fatigue?
Absolutely. They developed 3 very specific mental training methods.
Okay.
One is called perceptual decision-making training.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
It involves using video replays to help fencers analyze and react to different situations they might encounter during a match.
Okay.
Imagine training your brain to react like lightning, making split-second decisions based on your opponent's slightest move.
Right.
That's what perceptual decision-making training is all about.
So it's like training your brain to think faster and smarter on the piste.
Exactly. The second method is mental endurance training,
Okay.
which is particularly helpful for those longer, grueling competitions.
So how does that work? Do they just have fencers meditate for hours on end?
Not quite. They actually do these double task exercises.
Okay.
For example, they might have fencers cycle on a stationary bike while simultaneously completing cognitive tasks on a tablet.
Interesting. It's like multitasking on steroids.
You could say that.
Yeah.
The goal is to build resistance to mental fatigue by forcing them to work both their bodies and minds at the same time.
That makes sense. So that's 2 methods down. What's the third one?
The third method is mindfulness training, and this one was specifically developed for saber fencers.
Interesting. Why just saber?
Saber fencing is incredibly fast-paced and requires a very specific type of focus. Mindfulness training aims to improve that focus and engagement during matches through techniques for increasing awareness, acceptance, and the ability to reconcentrate quickly.
Okay.
It's all about being present in the moment,
Right.
without getting caught up in distractions or negative thoughts.
That sounds incredibly useful, not just for fencing, but for life in general. So what was the overall impact of this Train Your Brain study? Did it actually change how fencers train?
It definitely raised awareness among athletes and coaches about the importance of mental training.
Okay.
However, actually integrating these new methods into existing training programs takes time. You need to develop specialized training modules and make sure coaches know how to implement them effectively.
So it's not a quick fix, but it's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
What's also exciting is that these findings have potential applications beyond fencing in other dual-based sports like tennis or boxing, where the principles of mental fatigue and training are similar.
That's a great point. So this research could have a ripple effect across multiple sports.
Absolutely. On an even broader level, it highlights the importance of psychological adaptation to extreme conditions in any sport.
I love that. It's about training your brain to be as strong as your body. Now, that's a deep dive I can get behind. We've been talking about mental fatigue in fencing. But here's a question for you. What mental strategies do you use to stay focused and perform under pressure, whether in fencing or other areas of life? It's something to think about as we move into part 2 of our deep dive.
Yeah, definitely something to ponder.
For sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating how this research really challenges the traditional view of athletic training.
Right.
It's not just about physical strength and conditioning anymore.
Right. This Train Your Brain study shows that mental fatigue is like a real factor in fencing performance. And not just for beginners either.
Right.
We're talking Olympic level fencers.
Exactly.
Experiencing mental fatigue, especially in those long demanding competitions. We discussed the problem, mental fatigue, and those 3 innovative training methods.
Yeah.
Perceptual decision-making training,
Right.
mental endurance training, and mindfulness training.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how do those actually play out in real competition? Do they really make a difference?
That's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to train in a lab,
Right.
but another thing entirely to be out there on the piste, facing an opponent.
Did the study look at how these methods work in real life?
They did. The researchers worked closely with fencers and coaches to integrate the training methods into their regular routines.
And what did they find?
It's still early, but the initial results are promising. For example, fencers who did the perceptual decision-making training showed significant improvement in their reaction times and decision-making accuracy during matches.
So they were thinking faster and making better choices under pressure?
Precisely. Those who did the mental endurance training were able to maintain focus and concentration for longer, even when physically tired.
Which is crucial in fencing with those long, intense matches. Yeah. What about the mindfulness training for saber fencers?
That was particularly interesting because it addressed the unique mental challenges of saber fencing, known for its speed and intensity. It helped them develop a heightened sense of awareness and focus, allowing them to stay more present and engaged in their matches.
So less likely to get distracted by their own thoughts or their opponent's actions.
Exactly. A huge advantage when every millisecond counts.
Right.
It seems like these training methods could revolutionize how fencers prepare for competition.
I think so too. And the best part is that these methods could be adapted for other sports as well. Like we said earlier, tennis, boxing, anything where mental toughness is key.
Precisely. It's not just about fencing. It's about helping athletes in all disciplines reach their full potential.
Which is what we all want to see, right? Athletes performing at their best physically and mentally. This Train Your Brain study has really opened up a new frontier in sports training, shifting the focus from purely physical training to a more holistic approach that includes mental fitness.
It has indeed. It's a game changer for athletes at all levels.
I'm feeling mentally drained just thinking about this brain training.
Yeah.
So we've explored all these challenges of mental fatigue and fencing. We've discovered these innovative training methods and even seen how they're being applied in real competition. But here's something I've been wondering about. If mental training is so important, why haven't we heard more about it before?
That's a great question. It's something researchers and coaches are still grappling with.
So what are some of the reasons for this delayed recognition?
Well, traditionally, sports have emphasized physical prowess, strength, speed, agility.
Right.
The mental side was often overlooked, dismissed as something you couldn't really train.
Right. You either had it or you didn't.
Exactly. But as this research shows, mental skills can be developed and improved just like physical skills. It's like we were saying earlier, training your brain to be as strong as your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there another reason why it's taken so long for mental training to catch on?
Another challenge is that it's difficult to measure the impact of mental training. Unlike physical fitness, where you can track things like speed and strength, mental fitness is more subjective.
It's not as easy to quantify.
Right. But that's starting to change with the development of new assessment tools and technologies like the eye tracking technology used in the Train Your Brain study.
So we're getting better at understanding how the mind works and how to measure those changes.
Exactly. And that's making it easier for coaches and athletes to see the real value of mental training.
Which is fantastic because, as we've learned, mental training can have a huge impact on performance.
Absolutely. It can be the difference between winning and losing, reaching your full potential, or falling short.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth investing in.
So what's the takeaway message for our listeners today?
Mental training is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or just starting out, whether you're aiming for the Olympics or simply want to improve your personal best, taking care of your mental game is just as important as taking care of your physical game.
And the good news is there are proven methods and techniques that can help you do just that. Don't neglect your mental fitness. Embrace it, train it, and watch your performance soar. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of fencing and mental training. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsor, Fencing Family on Etsy. You can find them at fencingfamily.etsy.com. They've got everything you need to look and feel your best on and off the piste. Until next time, keep your blades sharp and your minds even sharper.